Hey, what's up guys? It's Art Book Addiction here, and we're here with a new artist journey video. So today, we're going to be talking about the mind versus the body, okay? So, when you're doing art, right, most people think that it's the mind that creates the art, okay? That the mind has like a almost huge control over the artistic process, right? But in my experience, I have found that the body is actually the one that creates the art, right? The mind is there to process information, to create ideas, right? The body is there to execute those ideas, right? To create and interpret what the mind has gave it, okay, the vision that it gave it, basically, right? And there's a huge difference between the two, and maybe understanding the separation between the two can make you a better artist, right? So that's what we talk about today. Before we start the video, please hit that like, hit that subscribe, check out my Prince of Patreon if you want to support the channel. Consider becoming a channel member. And with that, let's get into it. So the difference between the mind and the body, okay? So the mind, right, it's all your higher thinking, okay? It's all of your like ideas, concepts, right? Things that are intangible, okay, right? The mind is really where the divine can come into the brain, okay, right? Or I mean, obviously, but the divine can enter the self, right? And the mind is very important, right? Super important. You know what I mean? But the mind can't do it all, okay? Right? The mind cannot like if you just think of a thing, right? You can't manifest it into the world, okay? That's why you have your hands. That's why you have your body, okay? The body is there to help kind of interpret the process in creation, okay? And ideally, right? And this is how the way I work, right? The mind is there to accumulate knowledge and skill, right? And understand like composition, placement, stuff like that. You know what I mean, right? And then the body is there to take that message, right, and then make it become real. Okay, take it and become physical. You know what I mean, right? And one thing that I see a lot in younger artists, right, is that they let the mind get in the way of the body, okay? When it's actually two different jobs, okay, really two different jobs, right? Have you ever thought about like when you're working, right, and you just think way too hard, right, and you get like kind of like you hyperfixate on this like specific thought, and you're like, I want it to turn out this specific way, and it's not turning out the way you want it, right? Versus like when you're following your instincts, right, allowing the body to do its job, right? The artwork just kind of it just does its own thing, and then it just comes, and you're like, how did I even do that? How did I even do that? Right? It's because the body has a separate knowledge than the mind, okay? Right? And understanding that, and understanding when you got to let the body take over, right? That is really important, okay? So that's something I also want to talk about, the separation of knowledge, okay, when it comes to the mind and the body, okay, right? So like it's the difference between like like an athlete, right, who like you could think about every dribble, blah, 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 right, but the body, if it's not equipped to do the action, right, or if it doesn't have the skill built in, or trained in the body, right, the body will fail, okay? Right? It's like like something as easy as like a layup, right, in basketball, right, is like in concept, in the mind, oh yeah, you could do that, you know what I mean, I just gotta do this, right? And then when you try to do it, you're like, fuck dude, I'm unskilled, right? I don't know these things, you know what I mean, right? And that's why as much as you want to as much as you know like concepts like lighting, shadow, color theory, stuff like that, right? That's all knowledge, okay? That's all knowledge, and it's good to have that knowledge, right? But knowledge isn't everything, okay? knowledge is just one piece of, like of a half, okay, of a full piece, right? The other half is the body, right? The training of the body, right? Sometimes we have ideas that our bodies cannot create, okay, because the body is not skilled enough, okay, or the mind is like, ooh, what if I made this? And it's like, and it like there is a separation between the communication between the mind and the body, okay. The body will know what it can make, okay. The body will know its skill level, right? But the mind does not, okay. The mind is like, woo, it's like you can do whatever it wants, you know what I mean? It could imagine anything, right? But when you take, pencil to paper, right, you may not have what it takes, skill wise, in the body to create what the mind wants, okay, right? And so understanding that's huge, okay, huge. It's the difference between, like, Bruce Lee says, think, don't feel, or feel, don't think, right? Sorry, don't get those mixed up, okay? Because a lot of times thinking could get in the way, right? A lot, in Vagabond, the manga, right? There is the concept of having no thought, okay, of being entirely in the moment, okay, no fear, no anger, nothing, just, like a serenity, okay, like just understanding the placement of the body and being able to react accordingly, you know what I mean? And that is mastery, you know what I mean, right? That is where the masters lie, okay? So how do we bring this into like a practical thing, okay? How do we bring this to a practical thing? It's just when I'm working, right? When I'm working, I like to view it as letting the painting guide me, okay? Right? What does the painting want? What does the painting need? Okay, right? And the mind is, it very much wants to take control of the piece. It wants to be like, no, I have this particular vision that I want, and I want it to be like this, and I want it to be like that, right? I want to dictate, you know what I mean? And that's no good, okay? That's no good, because you're trying to force upon the piece what it is. It's like having a parent that's like I want you to be this specific thing, and that's not you, right? So you have to approach your art the same way, right? But the body understands what the art piece wants, okay? Because the body feels it. The body is making contact with the piece, right? And as it is created, right? Maybe it's not that perfect vision that you had, right? But what I'm trying to say is, maybe the mind needs to give the body a chance to do its thing, okay, right? And sometimes, like when you're really dictating over your piece, right, like you need to get out of the way. Your mind needs to get out of the way of the body, okay? The body knows, like, if you've practiced enough, if you've worked right, okay, the body has its own knowledge bank, right, that is inaccessible to the mind, to you, okay, right? And that's why when you're creating, right, and you make something and you're like, whoa, where the hell did that come from, right? That's the body, okay? The body has made that, okay? And it and sometimes the body will just move on its own. And that's like when you hit flow state, in my mind, right? That's when the body just takes over, right? And and the muse comes in, takes over your body, okay? You know what I mean? The mind is just there to give you an idea, right? Or like to assess, right? You look at your piece, you assess with your mind, okay? Right? You assess, this could change, this could, you know what I mean, right? So that's why I encourage you, when you're working on a piece, to when you're working on it, do a distance check, put it far away, and just look at it, right? This is the time for the mind to work, okay? You look and you assess. You look and you're like, this could be different, we can change it. You can't just let the body go all the time, because it will get lost in itself, right? And then you may create something that you weren't intending. I mean, that's part of the good thing, but maybe something's not working and you didn't notice because you're so close up to the piece, right? This works a lot more with physical pieces, but it can also be applied to digital if you just zoom out, You know what I mean, right? So do those distance checks. They're very important, right? But, you know, having that interplay between the mind, and then it's like, okay, now body, you go. Okay, now mind, you go. Now body, you go, right? And the switching between the two means that the body and the mind are communicating with each other, okay? And having that good, you know, communication, right, is key, because it means that they're both doing their job at the best capacity that they can. You know what I mean, right? And sometimes the body will get tired, okay? It's like, oh, you know, and then like sometimes you feel kind of like oh shit, dude, right? But the higher brain is like, you know, like, oh, I could still analyze, you know, I can still look at the piece, you know, determine, you know what I mean, right? And understanding that, allowing that process to happen, okay, will create good art, okay, right? And here's another thing. The mind and the body can help each other, like, you know, obviously with art, but like in general can really help each other, right? Because in my experience, right, sometimes the mind will be like lost in its own little world, like, you know, like doing its own thing, going crazy, you know, like neurotic shit, you know what I mean, like whether it's bad or good, or your brain is like firing at 1,000,000 miles per hour, and you don't really have a place to, like, you know, like calm down or remove that energy, right? The body will take over. The body, you could let the body like take over the process for you, okay, right? And so, like, you know, for me, right, a lot of times, right, I'll be thinking about all this kind of shit before I start working, right? And then I'm like, okay, the mind is currently like extremely preoccupied and, like, you know, distracted by a million things, right? So I will let the body take over. I will let the body do its thing, and you know, and like sometimes my brain is just like doing its own, you know, doing its own crazy thing while I'm working, right? And like it's almost like an engine, you know what I mean? And a lot of the times, honestly, right, my art is better when I'm like, you know, like not even like trying to pay attention to the work, you know what I mean? I am paying attention, but I'm also not paying attention, you know what I mean? Like my brain is like, you know, and I'm like, you know, the body has taken over, right? The muse has brought herself into your body and possessed you and allowed the body to do the work, okay, right? And that relationship, okay, that relationship between the mind, the body, the muse, okay, right? That's essential. That's the trifecta, man. That is what makes art, okay, right? So understanding that separation, right, and also how they come together is paramount and can really improve your work, okay, right? So let's talk about knowledge, okay? Let's talk about learning, okay? Let's talk about how, you know, learning is really good. You know, I have friends, okay? I have, you know, people who are good at their you know, craft, right? Who put too much importance on knowledge, okay? That like, oh, if I just learned the thing, if I just like found something out, my work would improve, okay? Or that like it would change my work. And like sometimes that's true, right? Sometimes that is what you need, right? Sometimes a lack of knowledge, can like learning something can really like drastically change your work, right? But I think everyone knows that most of the times that's not the case, okay, right? And that's why we have practice, okay? Practice allows the body to accumulate its own skill, right? And if you do this right, you know what I mean, the knowledge will complement the skill of the body, okay, right? Because like, you know, when I'm working, I'm not thinking about like oh, every lighting tone, bit, you know what I mean? Like oh, is a shadow right? Oh, is this like, you know, like I'm not thinking about any of that, okay? The body does the work, okay? The body has the knowledge of the brain in the background, and the body's like, okay, well, let me do my thing now. Let me actually create the thing, right? So a lot of times you just want to get out of the way, okay? You just want to get out of the way, allow the body to do this thing, right? And here's another thing, right? You want to give your body a voice in your mind, okay? The body, like, okay, so like, you know, I've talked about this many times. When I'm painting, right? When I'm painting, in the action of painting, okay, right? There's a conversation between the mind and the body, okay? And oftentimes the mind will be like, oh, well, you should do it this way. This is the, academic standard. This is the way it should be done, right? And my body is like, let's fucking do this, dude, right? And then the body and then the mind will go like, what the hell are you doing? What are you talking about? Why would you do that? That's crazy, right? And then the body says, just trust me, okay? We can always fix it if it doesn't turn out right, okay? And then you have the agreement between, and then the mind's like, okay, you know what? You've done this before, and like you've made wild decisions before. Let's just go with it. You know what I mean? And so then your body, your mind, like, agreement, okay? They made the exchange, yes, we'll do it. And like that's like a micro like decision in your artwork. You know what I mean? Right? So like, letting the mind have the conversation with the body, right? So a lot of times people think that the mind is the only one having a conversation, right? But it's not true, okay? That's why you gotta give your body a voice. You gotta give like and for me, the voice of my body is saying like let's put this fucking crazy ass color down. Let's put this this super saturated blue, right? And I'm like, and like, what do you do? What are you talking about, right? And that's where people, I feel like a lot of people define it as madness, okay? As madness, right? As some kind of ailment, some kind of like, like some weird, like you've been plane stricken, you know what I mean, right? When I really think it's just having a voice for your body, having a voice that is outside of just your mind, right? Of course, there's many voices in the mind, but they are of the mind, okay? They're of the mind. You want to make a voice of the body, okay? Right? And the body is reptilian, dude, okay? The body is like, it's not like smart, okay? Right? But it is wise, okay? It knows things that you do not, you know what I mean? And like, because the muse can enter the body, right? Because the muse takes over the body, right? It is often much wiser, okay? And can do decisions that you cannot do. Make calls that you would never do, okay? Right? And then people define that as madness, right? And that's fine. That's okay, because the voice of the body is mad, okay? Right? It like in the voice of my body is like do this thing, and I'm like, what? Like, I'm like, do this thing, what? Oh, okay, right? And then because like sometimes my mind will try to take over, right? And then the body's like no, like do this crazy thing instead, right? And I'll do the crazy thing, turn out beautiful, okay, right? Or do this crazy thing, and then my brain is like oh, we want to bring it back, we really want to bring it back, right? But then I allow the body, it's like no, he knows what he's doing. The body knows what he's doing, right? Just let him do his thing, right? Like, just I will trust in the body, in the muse, to know what it's doing, okay? And to take the knowledge that I have from my mind and implement it into the work, okay? Right? And so, again, allowing the things to do their thing, okay? It's like a natural process. It's a natural thing, right? Allowing the body to naturally voice itself, right? Allowing the mind to like let go of control, okay? Like, to play it loose, you know what I mean, right? And like the body having the confidence in the mind, right, to guide it, right? You know what I mean? Like the body trusts the mind, because the mind is what, like, is the control man, right? But the body is what is the, like, okay, so like the mind is the captain of the ship, the body is the ship, right? You know what I mean? Right? So having that interplay, super important, okay? So my advice to you, right, is to, when you're drawing, when you're creating, okay, start to feel out those differences, start to see it. You probably already do it unconsciously, right? But once you start noticing this thing, right, give voice to your body. Okay, give like when the mind doesn't work, let the body work. Okay, and sometimes when the body doesn't work, you need the mind to do its thing. Okay, right? So like sometimes the body is tired, the body is exhausted, or the body is like like, for lack of a better word, sad, right? And then that's when the mind used to be like, okay, it's my turn to step up, it's my turn to guide this ship through these heavy waters, right? And then you that's where the will, your will comes in, right? The will is from the mind, okay, right? And whatever the will wants to happen, the body will, even if painfully, follow, okay, because the body trusts the mind, okay, right? And building that trust between you, your body, the muse, okay, that relationship, paramount, okay? And if you can master these things, right, you will become a master, okay? Your work will become masterful, okay, right? But it takes a lifetime. It takes a lifetime to do this. But if you're on the path, you can get there, right? And the other benefit is that your mind and your body and your muse will be in harmony, okay? And you'll feel way better, okay? Because you'll understand each other. You know what I mean, right? You'll understand, like, so there's no more confusion internally, okay? You know what I mean? And that's the real benefit, man. That's the real benefit, that you could really learn from yourself, learn from not just your mind, but from like what your body wants, okay, and what the muse wants, what the divine wants, right? And understanding those things, you know what I mean? And like being able to rely on the other parts of you when this part of you has failed or is in distress, you know what I mean, right? So when you guys are working, keep these things in mind, right? Let it play in the background, you know what I mean? And understand that, like, sometimes when the mind can't do something, maybe it's because the body's not skilled enough, right? Or maybe the mind's getting in the way of the body, so you gotta let the body do its thing, right? Let the body make its peace and follow through, okay? I think we'd end the video here, guys. Please, if you enjoyed the video, hit that like, hit that subscribe, check out my Princeton Patreon if you want to support the channel, consider becoming a channel member, right? All that bullshit. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks a lot.